They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And we are so excited today because this has been a long time in the making. We thought he would be our first guest. No. Then we thought he'd be our first male guest. And no, but he is our second official male guest on the Happy Women Podcast. The reason that we're all here together today, the reason you and I, Katie, are connected, your husband, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, joins us. He's the host of America First, former advisor to President Trump, national security expert, author. And the guy's kind of like a Renaissance man. And of course, he's my friend, your husband, Dr. G. Thanks for being with us on this special episode.
What am I, chopped liver? You're on like episode 32 or something. I'm like, oh, somebody canceled. Get Dr. G on. I know how you ladies think. No, but seriously,
never. We've been just plotting.
It's just been absolutely incredible. Are you guys having fun or what?
We're absolutely having fun.
Katie, are you having fun?
Oh, it's the most fun. I can't believe how much fun Jen and I have talking together about the things of the world, the problems that we see, but also talking to the incredible women mostly, but there are some men out there too, who are just doing incredible things to fix the problems that they see. But husband of mine, I'm going to put you in that category too, because you're out there every day working to fix it.
But only because I have great manuals on how to do it. This one's really good. Next Gen Mark.
That's one of the best sellers right now, I think, actually.
Everything you need to know, guys. Even President Trump has a hand-delivered copy. Someone took it to him at Mar-a-Lago. So if you haven't read this, shame on you.
Okay, for those who are only listening, he is holding up my book, Next Gen Marxism. And no, I did not pay him to do that, but thank you for the promotion. Okay, let's jump right into it. The thing that's on our minds right now, of course, is the amazing interview last night between President Trump and Elon Musk. So, we can talk about the 40-minute delay. I do think it is really concerning, and I think it flags a deeper problem in our national security, which is that I don't think we are on our front foot in addressing threats in the information space. But I don't want to get into that yet. I really just want to talk about the conversation. So I just think it was such an interesting moment. Really, it was sort of like a Trump rally, but taking it to almost a limitless audience, right? Anybody who could listen. And I think it really opened the eyes of people who've maybe not had the chance to hear him directly. He's so authentic. He's so transparent. And it almost reminded me of FDR's fireside chats that he did on radio, right? And I think that was what so endeared him to the American people. They got to hear from him directly. Quite the contrast with Kamala Harris, who, now it's been day 24 and we've 23. Still not heard a word. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 23. So I don't know. What did you think of last night's interview?
Look, first things first, Kamala, Biden, I don't think there's any Democrat out there who could speak extemporaneously for more than 2 hours. It was clear there were no talking points, no script, no bumpers. Elon hadn't been told, oh, you can't say this or you can't ask about that. And I, for one, I'm so glad for just the first question. You were with me at the RNC convention, and when President Trump started his speech there, he said something that kind of was a gut punch to me. He said, a lot of people have asked me about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, when I was shot by that assassin's bullet, and I'm only going to tell this story once because it was so painful. And he said, quote, I'm never going to say it again. It was such a humanizing story, and it's something that the mainstream media, the left, the Democrats have been trying to deep six. We saw what Google, what Alphabet did to it. You couldn't search Trump assassination attempt for 2 weeks after the assassination. It was like Orwell. It was like the memory hole. And the fact that Elon asked that question first was so powerful. But to the broader impact, look, this is the death knell of the lying legacy media. Within less than Like 12 hours, less than 12 hours later, we've got 1 billion impressions. The fact that you had 1 million people listening at the time was absolutely stunning. And look, let's put it into the correct context. This isn't just Elon Musk, the man who bought Twitter for $44 billion, who made Spaces a big thing. This is the richest man in the world who said, three times, he said, I endorse you because you will save America and Western civilization. A vote for Kamala will be an absolute apocalypse. So the fact that he said that is huge. And I've been tracking this guy since he bought Twitter. I was on a space with him. I got to ask him a couple of questions when there were, 800,000 people listening. And his evolution is fascinating. This is a guy who's a genius. I've been listening to his the biography of him. The guy's a genius. He's going to take us to Mars. But he just discovered politics about 2 years ago. And he's like a kid with a new toy. And you could still hear that yesterday in the questions he asked, the directness. This was just two guys chatting. One of them is the richest guy in the world. The other one is a former president, and God willing, if we do our part, a future president. But what a stunning conversation. And to realize that he's doing it for two reasons, really just two reasons. Number one, he is a legal immigrant to the United States, who has lived the American dream, who loves America, who understands it is the greatest nation on earth. And beyond that, why would you drop 44 billion on Twitter? One reason and one reason alone. And it came across again and again and again. The love of free speech, the First Amendment, the fact that the Washington Post's White House correspondent yesterday in the briefing room asked Karine Jean-Pierre, hey, is Biden doing anything about this? Can we shut down this space because, misinformation, let's not talk about Russian collusion, tells you everything you need to know. The fact that you had a commissioner from the EU who, I love his bio. It has his German title. His German title is Kommissar, like, the Soviet Union. And the Kommissar said, Elon Musk, you better not be propagating disinformation, otherwise you will be in trouble. But the great irony of that little fascist, that trumped-up little Kommissar, is where did he post that letter? Oh, on X. The irony was delicious.
Imagine that. And I was stunned by everything that both of you have already laid out. The fact that this was a conversation. Look, Elon's not an interviewer. He was someone who almost seemed a little nervous starting off his conversation. You could kind of hear those nerves. But what was amazing is he went from AI to inflation to the border. And President Trump could comment in a way that was very astute with understanding about every single topic that they were able to get to. And what I think is really important about this, and Katie, you said fireside chats. And I really think, first of all, that this interview shows us the power of talk radio and still the audio medium, because you felt like a fly on the wall listening to a conversation. And I feel like President Trump could do these weekly and make these almost as a way to get around the media, who is so clearly in the tank for Kamala Harris. They're creating this so-called momentum. They're creating what she's going to be running on. I mean, they're allowing her to fundraise off of what is created by them, not necessarily by the American people. And I shared with Katie, Seb, we have a producer here at the station, Hot Chocolate Jose is what we call him. And I got him registered to vote for the first time. And I harvested his ballot during the primary. And he was unclear as to whether or not he was going to vote for Trump or what he was going to do. He came in today and he said, your boy did really good. I think I'm going to vote for him because of the interview with Elon Musk.
No, absolutely. So this, just the way, excuse me, just the way they addressed not just every issue, but the way they addressed it for every man, for every woman, from underground train travel to space exploration to inflation. Just that one. Look, everybody needs to go right now. Go to my Instagram, Sebastian_Gorka. Go to my Twitter, Seb Gorka. There is a superb, of course, it's my buddy Chris Coles, the Mr. Reagan account. He did a 22-minute supercut. If you missed the 2.5 hours, watch the 22-minute supercut, because when they explain together as the most successful businessman in the world and a pretty good businessman who's also been president said the only source for inflation is the government. It's printing money. And who does it hurt? It hurts the average American. Let's just stop for a millisecond. This is a self-made billionaire, President Trump, who's risen to the highest, most powerful position in the world, 50 years in business, TV, you name it. And then we've got the richest man in the world who's going to take us to Mars. And they're both connecting to who? Working class Americans. This is the beauty of what we heard yesterday. With no filter, with no talking points, they said, guys, it's a binary choice. Forget politics. And Musk was very blunt. I've been more of a Democrat in the past, but this is insane. We have an elite that has opened our borders to tens of millions of illegals. And who does that hurt? It doesn't hurt me or you, Jen or Katie. We're not going to lose our job because of somebody who illegally came across the border from Afghanistan or El Salvador. It's going to hurt the domestic legal immigrant, the person who paid their money, got in line, took the test, who's, waiting tables at some restaurant in Austin. And along comes an illegal and says to the restaurant owner, hey, I'll do Jose's job for 50% cash in hand under the table. That's who you hurt the most. And we haven't even discussed the violence. The latest reports out of New York, the guy who beat up that NYPD officer has been arrested again, not to mention Laken Riley, not to mention Jocelyn Nungare, the 12-year-old girl raped and murdered, or close to where we live. Just outside of D.C., Rachel Marin, mother of 5, raped and murdered. This is where the rubber hits the road. And I'm pleading. I called up the president a few days ago. The only thing decent people who love America need to talk about for the next, 84 days, forget policy in the kind of wonky Washington way. Talk about the kitchen table. 3 issues that Kamala embodies. Okay, what are the 3 issues most affecting and mobilizing Americans? Open borders, the thing that got President Trump elected in 2016. Then crime, the two are inextricably linked. And then lastly, I think we've discussed this, Jen, on my show. It's the trifecta of quality of living, quality of living, quality of living. I mean, it's not just the official inflation figures. The price of a pound of bacon. Talk about that. The price of gas. It's the one question. God bless President Trump. I think this was his first tweet yesterday when he came back on the platform. He said, he asked the question Reagan asked in 1980. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? That's the reality of the next 86 days.
But I want to push back on this idea that it's actually not touching us, because I'm feeling it so much in a very personal way lately. I mean, look, our house was broken into 2 Christmases ago. They broke in through our son's bedroom, and the police told us this is a big problem now in our area.
Hang on, they said more than that. They told us this is a Colombian gang that is targeting homes. No, this isn't
exactly.
some drug addict, who was born here, or a veteran who lost his job. This is organized crime by illegals. And can I just mention, I don't want to interrupt you, we have to salute our 2 hounds from hell, the late great Killian and Leia, that chased them out of the building so fast they landed on the wet concrete on our patio. Dogs are great. We don't deserve them. Get dogs.
Okay. And then just a week ago, our son and his fiance were hit in a car very badly. They weren't hurt, thank goodness, but the car was really damaged by somebody who didn't speak English, didn't have a driver's license, and lied to the police about being the driver of the car. And I've been reading Megan Basham's new book. We're going to be talking to her next week. And it opens up on the immigration issue with just a heartbreaking story of a mom whose son was killed because he was hit riding his motorcycle by an illegal alien. And it wasn't just the fact that the guy hit the son that killed him, but the fact that in trying to escape, he ran the poor kid over. And that's what killed him. And, I think that more and more people are feeling this, but I want to talk about an aspect of this that I feel that we are not sufficiently addressing, which is, we talk about the safety and that's big. We talk about the jobs and that's big, but there's a whole nother dimension to this, which is our culture. This is absolutely ruinous to our culture. And I feel Elon did touch on this a little bit last night, but, it's really the left loves to say that our culture is no better than another culture. Our American culture is no different from another culture. No, it is vastly different. You know, the things that we are taught in school, those foundational ideas that all people are created equal and all are deserving of respect and share equal dignity, those things are kind of falling by the wayside. And we are having this invasion of people who not only don't necessarily share our values, but they're going into our schools and no longer being taught those values. And I think this is really damaging to the American culture and the American idea. I worry about
I stand
this.
corrected. I will only do this and retract my statement because you are the co-host of the Happy Women podcast. Katie, you're right. That was a kind of line I've been using for some time now, but you're absolutely right. I'm thinking in terms of affecting us financially. My job is not at risk, neither is yours or Jen's because of 20 million illegals. But yes, the culture, and I haven't shared this on my radio show. I'll do it today. The fact that yesterday I get a phone call as I'm getting ready for the show from somebody who's pretending to be one of our children, who's been kidnapped, hands the phone to some scammer who clearly is, thick Hispanic accent, said, "I've got your child, I'm a drug dealer." And they got one detail wrong about our children, which made me realize it was a scam. But the fact that that's happening in America, you're right. The culture of people coming in and threatening my children, trying to scam me because they say they've kidnapped them. Or think about this. You're 4 immigrants, illegal immigrants, and you're teenagers. And in broad daylight, you're beating up 2 uniformed police officers on camera in one of the most famous cities in the world, if not the most famous city. And then what happens? That's bad enough. They're bringing that culture to America. What does Alvin Bragg do? He releases them 3.5 hours later. This is what happened to the murderer of Jocelyn Nungare. He was arrested on trial endangerment in New York, is released by the Democrat prosecutor, goes to Atlanta, and then rapes with his friend and murders a 12-year-old American. I mean, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. And I think we have to get you on my Newsmax show to discuss that, because this isn't just about the economy or open borders. This is about the infection of our culture by those who are endangering the lives and not just the livelihood of those who live here.
And they're creating this chaos because they want to destroy the country, right? They want us to have to rebuild the country in whatever ever crazy image they have in mind. And we haven't even talked yet about the woman who was raped in broad daylight in Coney Island just this week by someone here illegally. I mean, as someone who's born and raised in Los Angeles, I have never felt more like I'm looking over my shoulder at all times. When I'm getting gas, I'm constantly keeping my eyes open. So we may not lose our job, but this is directly impacting every single one of us every single day. And you guys are both experts in national security. And I do want to talk about that as well, because under President Trump, the guy that the media said would cause World War III, and he was going to be a dictator and all of these problems. I mean, we have immense hotspots now all across the Middle East. We've got Ukraine and Russia. We have China and Taiwan. But through our open borders, we have bad actors coming into this country and threatening our safety here as well on our home soil. And it doesn't seem like they're concerned about that. I mean, you have someone who was let in the country that wanted to assassinate President Trump that we just found out was arrested the day before his rally when there was a real assassination attempt. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that this administration is just letting happen, and they don't even explain themselves.
Well, no, because, as you rightly infer, it's just about power, the maintenance of power and the accrual of power. That's all it's about. And, let's be very tactical about the next 86 days. I was coming out of a meeting with Katie and some immigrants to America who want to help her out as the chair of the Fairfax County GOP. And I bumped into a Democrat in the parking lot. And I decided to once take my wife's advice and to behave. And I engaged this individual. And I said, "Hey, how you doing? How's Biden working out for you? And how's the economy?" And he said, "Oh, the economy is great. My shares and my 401k is great." I said, "Okay. What about the situation internationally? What about the greatest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust on October 7th, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, on and on and on? And this is when you realize the enormity of the challenge we have. This Democrat voter said, what do you mean? Presidents have no effect on whether there are wars in the world. At that point, I reverted to type and I said, then you are a clinical imbecile and this conversation is over. So we have tens of millions of Americans who are in a cult. If a sack of potatoes had the letter D on it, they'd vote for it. So you're in Los Angeles, we're in Northern Virginia trying to turn it around. We have to be very, very tactical about what we talk about and who we talk to. Forget most of the Democrats. We've got to talk to the independents, the undecideds, and the odd Democrat who says, you know what? Presidents might have an effect on war. The state of the economy is a big deal. So we have to think smart and we have to target our talking points to those who are prepared to hear us.
I'd add in Latino voters, by the way. There's polling out, and the reason they're not talking about this in the mainstream news media is that Harris does not have the support of the majority of Latino voters. This is a huge opportunity point for President Trump. And Dr. G, I'd ask you that question. I know that you do have a close relationship with President Trump and his campaign. If you could suggest just a couple of strategies, because, you know, people come to us and say, how do we get involved in all of that? But what would you like those next 84 days to look like? What are you hoping to see? And what can we do as well in your mind that can actually get President Trump back in the White House?
I'm formulating this right now. It's going to be a piece on my Substack. And I think it just goes back to what I said earlier. You've just got to, the KISS principle. Keep it simple. It's only going to be, the message is only going to resonate if it really is something the listener can relate to. So the cost of living, crime, illegal migration. When you've got residents of New York calling out the mayor at town hall meetings, it's happening, okay? It's happening. So I don't want to call it a dumbing down, but Katie knows best. She's on the ground every single day in her new job. It's got to be stuff where people say, yeah, I can relate to that. I've seen that. If you actually live in the real world, the great Rich Miniter came on my show for an hour. He's one of the greatest investigative reporters alive today. And he said, in America, we have two groups of people, the unaccountable, the elite, for whom the state of the economy doesn't matter. Their biggest problem is whether the Wi-Fi signal at Starbucks is strong or not, right? They're not affected by, outsourcing manufacturing jobs to China or Mexico. And then there's the rest of us, who he calls the accountables, people for whom the cost of a gallon of gasoline actually directly impacts their life. If you're a carpenter, if you're a plumber, and if the cost of gas has increased 100 or 200%, you may not be able to make the car payment on that F-150. You may not be able to buy your kids a new pair of shoes for the new school year. So keep it at a level that really, this is why the president is reminiscent of Ronald Reagan in many ways. Why? Think about this. We were examining his style yesterday, and I'm saying, I love this guy because wherever he goes, it's the handmade, solid, dark suit and the black dress shoes and the red or blue tie. He doesn't pander. He doesn't put on a sombrero. He doesn't change his accent. I mean, Kamala, we had this super clip of her saying the same thing at 12 different places, but the accent was different in every place. He doesn't do that. That's why think of this. Working class Americans in the Bronx, in New Jersey, love the billionaire in the handmade Italian suit because he doesn't pander. When I met him for the first time in 2015, and I the reality TV guy, that guy wants to talk to me. And I sat down and I have a very different background. I mean, look, I went to a private school in London, debate club, all that stuff. A very different style. But within about 90 seconds of sitting down with him, I realized two things about this man. Number one, he utterly, completely loves America, which he deems to be broken and has to be fixed. And number two, he has an utter detestation, a loathing of political correctness. That's why people love him. There's no talking points. There's no two-faced Janus behavior like we see every day here in D.C. When I worked for him in the White House, people asked me, what's he like? What's he really like? And I said, I got bad news for you guys. If you've been alive and breathing for the last 20 to 50 years, you know who he is, because he's the same in front of 60,000 people in a stadium and exactly the same when it's just you and him in the Oval Office alone. That's the irony of the situation. This man, despite winning the election, despite becoming president, is still not a politician. And that's what the campaign has to communicate. I'm not a politician. I love America. Do you love America? Join me. It's really, you've helped me to express this. It is that simple. Do you love America? Vote for me.
Yeah. You heard it here. I know you have to jump. Thank you so much for coming on the show. People can listen to you Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 Eastern time on Salem Radio Network, America First with Sebastian Gorka, and they can catch you Sunday nights, 7 p.m. on Newsmax. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Jen, you want to stay on and talk about him?
Yeah, and you can catch him at dinner tonight with Katie. Maybe, if you're lucky.
And with Jen every Tuesday morning. God bless you guys. Keep crushing it. You are warrior princesses par excellence. Love you guys.
Thank you so much. We love you. Thank you, Dr. G. We appreciate it. Check him out, sebgorka.com. And yes, just to play off what Dr. G was saying, Katie, one of the things I want to expand on, and maybe we'll talk to Seb some more about it at another time. First of all, I want him to come back so we can do his whole story because it's such an interesting one, just like yours, your evolution. But when you talk about these kitchen table issues that I think are really important to voters, and he mentioned the cost of bacon. President Trump, I think, mentioned the cost of bacon last night. I have a friend who is getting involved in politics. She is a Trump supporter. She and I talk a lot. She listens to the radio program. She listens to this podcast, actually. So she'll love this shout out. Hi, Katie. She's a Katie, too. But she had something so interesting the other day on social media. She said, if you don't think that the inflation is real, you guys use Amazon every once in a while, right? Go to your Amazon cart and you can see every order that you've ever made. Pick an order from 2017 and hit reorder. All you can do, you can hit the little reorder button. Look at the cost difference from 2016 to today. And so for all the people who don't believe that inflation is real, that the cost of living is going up, that it doesn't have it doesn't make a difference who the president is, pick a Trump year, hit reorder in your cart and see what it comes up with. And I guarantee you're going to see that price is up significantly. I tried it on a couple of different orders and Katie, it's insane. I mean, it's up by 30% in some cases. That's meaningful to people who are struggling to send their kids back to school this week or this month and have to get clothes and shoes and school supplies and make lunches. It really is meaningful stuff.
Wow. I think that's a fantastic exercise. I love that. But let's go. I want to come back to the idea, something you brought up earlier. What can we actually do about this? Because I think so many of us, and I actually think it's a growing number of us, I think so many of us, we do recognize what's at stake and more people are willing to step up and do something. On that note, I just have to mention one in particular. So I was giving a talk at one of our precincts on Sunday. And one of the things that just really meant a lot to me was there were two young guys there, two 22-year-olds who said, what's happening with the young Republicans in Fairfax? They want to get involved. And I think, for me personally, one of the biggest challenges has been young people. And I don't understand this. I can only think it's because of what's happening in schools and the way they're being taught. I mean, you and I have both talked about this, right? We both have the letters that we wrote to presidents, right? Yep. I have my President Nixon letter. Which was your letter? Reagan. Oh my gosh.
Share a birthday. So Reagan was my guy. I wrote him a letter to let him know.
I love that. I mean, we were educated in a particular way. We understood that it was our privilege and our responsibility to vote. And I don't see kids being taught that today. And I'm actually really shocked to see the number of young people like in their 20s who, for whatever reason, they don't think it's essential to vote.
Go ahead. I'm so sorry. No, finish up because I
was just going to say, so to see these two young men to be motivated really spoke a lot to me. And I'm going to give credit to Charlie Kirk. I think Charlie Kirk has done so much to make it cool again for young people to be engaged politically. But Charlie, you said, has an idea, a very specific idea for how people can help.
He built the infrastructure for Turning Point USA, and now he's actually putting this together so that people can actually get mobilized. And remind me to come back and tell you about Chris Pratt, because it puts into perspective what you're talking about. But Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, just sent out a tweet actually right before we started recording our episode today. And it said, people always ask me, Charlie, what can I do? And Katie, people ask that to you and me all the time too. What can I do? I want to get more involved. And so his answer is, he's ready to send people. And by the way, they'll pay for your accommodations. They're sending people to Arizona and they're sending people to Wisconsin. Charlie and I talked before, and this was in April, but looking at the map and really, despite what the mainstream media is telling you, not much has changed. This is going to be a close election. It was before, it is now. It just is. If Trump can win Wisconsin, if he can win one of those states, like a Wisconsin or a Pennsylvania, and he holds on to the lead that he has in Arizona and Nevada and Georgia, it's his. That's it. That's the electoral map that he needs. So it's telling that Charlie still obviously thinks that it's about Wisconsin and holding Arizona because of the fraud issues, their voting machine issues in Arizona. So he's offering to send people to collect 100 ballots pre-election day and then turn out 100 voters on election day. And Turning Point will pay for your accommodation. So now, if you have the time, you might as well take advantage of this. You get to meet people, you get to see maybe places in the country that you aren't familiar with, and you help deliver the election. So Turning Point's doing great. But maybe next episode, maybe we can get this audio. And I should have been more prepared because you said something and I saw it 2 days ago and it sparked in me and you just made me remind myself of this. So after President Trump, I'm a weirdo, obviously. But after President Trump was shot and after that assassination attempt, I thought it was interesting on Instagram to see which celebrities spoke out about it because, celebrities are constantly using their Instagram platforms for liberal causes. And so I actually did a deep dive into reality stars, into celebrities who seem to be supportive of President Trump. And I started following those people. One of them is the actor Josh Duhamel, who was I think he was in Transformers. He was in the show Las Vegas. He was married to Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas for a while. And he posted President Trump's fight, fight, fight. And I thought, I'm following him. And then I see Chris Pratt, who's married to Katherine Schwarzenegger, who also doesn't come out about Trump a lot, obviously, because, stepfather's Arnold, but you can tell he's a conservative. And so 2 days ago, I was just scrolling through Instagram and I saw Chris Pratt delivering a speech that Josh Duhamel had shared. And it was about Chris Pratt saying that the young people in this country today think that their country doesn't need them. And that really hit me because people are so, especially young people, are so now in their devices, right? They're constantly in their phones. They're on social media platforms. They're playing Fortnite. They're creating fake universes for themselves. And Chris Pratt's point, and he was delivering the speech somewhere at a podium, he said, I wish young people knew how much this country needs them. And he was talking about how the country needs their service and that the country needs them engaged and that it's not just about these fake realities. It's about the whole of the United States. And so maybe we can deep dive into that a little bit on a future episode, because I really thought that audio, the video, was really, really powerful about where young people are today. And maybe it helps if you've got kids or if you've got young people in your life to try to get through to them and make them see that this country needs them. It's up to them. And we need young people engaged.
I love that message.
Yeah.
And, I have to tell you, from talking to these two young men, I got the sense that they recognize that they recognize things are really dire and it is on their shoulders. And I thought that was super, super exciting to see that. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely think this is something we should talk about more, and I will just reiterate, I think, why this is so important for us as the parents and grandparents of young people. The strategy of the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, is to go for the low propensity voters so that they trust that there is X number of people who are going to turn out. Their campaign is not trying to reach those people. Their campaign has identified the people who they believe will be Trump supporters,
right,
but will not vote. And keep in mind, at best, in this election, we can expect about an 80% turnout. So think about that. That means 20% at least of the electorate will not vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my little walk list of people that I got assigned to my walk list because I volunteered for Trump Force 47. Mm-hmm. And I got 25 names. And I started looking through the names of these low propensity voters. They were all young people in their 20s.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that. So yes, it's a problem that we need to address. And I think, honestly, I'm going to say, I said this to a group of people. I spoke at a really wonderful, an elder care facility last weekend. And my message to them was, I actually think there's a special role for grandparents here.
Absolutely.
A lot of parents don't feel comfortable getting into these kinds of conversations with their kids. And I respect that. You want to respect your child's autonomy. I'm talking about as they become an adult. You want to respect their autonomy. You don't want to tell them who to vote for, right? But I think that there's something that grandparents can do with their grandchildren to talk about the importance of the United States and to talk about their responsibility as an American citizen to vote and to be engaged. So I'm going to put that out there to all the grandparents who listen to us.
Absolutely. And we'll talk more about that. I think young people is definitely a good avenue to go down to try to figure out engagement with them as well. And we thank you all for joining us. Big thank you to Dr. G for being here. Katie, don't forget, get Katie's book. It's out right now. It's called Next Gen Marxism. You should check out her website as well at katiegorka.org. You can search for her on Facebook. Just look for Catherine Gorka. You can find me on social media as well on Facebook and Instagram at Jennifer Horn Radio and on Truth and on X at Jennifer Horn. And thank you all for being with us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.